Hello, everybody. This is Elijah.
And this is Luke.
And we are the Eagles of Steel. So, today we are going to finally switch over to defense. So, everybody, if you're expecting to do tight ends, there wasn't really that many good tight ends in the NFL. Anyway.
There's maybe like 3 or 4.
Yeah, maybe. So, we were skipping them entirely. Yeah, boo-hoo. But today we're going to the defense. So, defensive players today we're going to be talking about are D tackles and defensive ends. So we're combining the two together due to the fact of timing restrictions.
They're both D-line, so...
Yeah. This is going to be a very interesting list because there's a lot of good players with good stats, and there's some players that they might not have great stats, but you know they're a great player. So it's like you almost feel bad if you didn't include them. So
why don't you start off with your first honorable mention, sir?
Oh, yes, I will. And it's my first honorable mention is my very own Steelers, Cameron Hayward.
I can see he's a little biased here.
Oh, yeah. His stats last year weren't the greatest. But he's a Steeler. And he's still technically the second best player on the Steelers. Obviously, yeah. Him be number one. But all in all, for me, that has to be Cameron Hayward. How about your number 12?
I'm going to shock you. Jonathan Allen from Washington. So,
well, he's good. So I don't like him.
So the reason why I have him up here, because yes, Jalen Carter had half more sack, but remember this, his stats say otherwise. He had 53 total 53 tackles for 30 solos, but Jalen Carter only had 33 tackles for 20 solos. So it's a little different, but yes, Jalen Carter did have 2 forced fumbles, and Jonathan Allen didn't have any. But statistically, it's a little different than Carter.
Yeah.
And my number 11, I have Will Anderson Jr. from the Houston Texans, the rookie.
He was a rookie sensation for the most part.
But like I said, I'll explain rookie-wise. Yes, he had 7 sacks, which is not bad for a rookie.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, he's this rookie year. He had 45 total tackles, 29 of them were solo. And he only played 15 games.
Oh, he missed 2?
He missed 2.
Oh.
So,
okay.
he could have. That's why he's on the honorable mentions. He could have had more. You realize that.
Yeah, he could. My number 11 is actually Houston's Denico Autry. He's way older. He's more of a veteran. I don't know if he's still in the league. I think he is. I'm hoping he is because last year he had 11.5 sacks. I think he had like 2 or 3 forced fumbles. Tackles for loss, I think he had I forget how many tackles for loss he had. But he still did pretty good. He could have been in my top 10, but there's some of these players that I just had to include just because, they're iconic. And Denico Autry has been jumping around from 3 different teams in his past. So it's kind of like he hasn't been one team's sensation.
Anyways, let's start off your top 10.
Yeah. And my number 10 has to go to the Colts' very own DeForest Buckner. And you want to talk about a guy who has been on that team his entire career? He's one of them. And he's old, too. He's in his 30s, I think, right now. I think he's either 30 or 31 or something. I don't know if he's been there for a while. He's played 17 games. He had 8 sacks last year, which is, it's whatever. He had 11 tackles for loss, and he had 2 forced fumbles. Now, that's the Colts didn't really have that much good of a pass rush last year, so 8 sacks for DeForest Buckner still is technically good for what the Colts did, which is weird. But still, Buckner is an iconic guy from the Colts, and obviously people have to give him credit that he's good.
I think you'll probably be shocked at this number 10. I have Javon Hargrave.
Who?
From the 49ers. Yeah, I mean, listen to his stats. Yeah, he has similar stats to Will Anderson. But Hargrave has more experience, though. And I think he has some forced fumbles, if I'm not correct.
Oh, I bet he probably does.
Yeah, he does not. He has 8 tackles for losses. Let me see. Okay, so it's a little different, but let me see. He was a former Eagle, though, too. So I got to be a little...
So you do have the bias there. Okay.
I have a little bit biased, but also had 7 sacks. He played for 8 years in the league, 44 total tackles, and 25 solos. So
hey, that's pretty good, though.
Similar stats to... He only played 16 games, too. Again, similar to Will Anderson. It was hard to debate between. Number 9, I have DeForest Buckner.
There you go.
And obviously, he has 8 sacks, and this is always awesome because you include this: 81 tackles total. 45 of them were solos. So you also include there. He played all 17 games, and I'm pretty sure that's include everything. And his forced fumbles, I think he had. I mean, what am I looking for?
DeForest Buckner.
DeForest Buckner. He had 2 forced fumbles. So yeah, that's why he's up above Javon Hargrave, because Hargrave didn't have any.
Yeah. My number 9 goes to Las Vegas's new addition, Christian Wilkins. He had 9 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, and a forced fumble. Now, if you look at all those, technically DeForest Buckner could be considered better, but the reason why I have Wilkins better is because he was actually on the Miami Dolphins last year, and he was their best guy on that defensive line. So it's both of these guys were both great, but now Wilkins gets to share the load with another guy entirely, which we're going to get to later. My number 8 is Kansas City's Chris Jones.
How dare you?
No, they don't have...
A lot of people probably have him way higher just because he's Chris Jones. I don't care. Because if you look at his stats, they're mid. He had 10.5 sacks. He had 13 tackles for loss, but he didn't have a single forced fumble in the entire season.
Which is very surprising.
Yeah, for someone like him, that's very shocking. I don't really know how many solo tackles he had, but that's pretty
I'll
sad.
get to that, because I also have him at number 8.
Oh, really?
Yes, I have Chris Jones at number 8 as well. He's played 8 years in the league. He has 30 total tackles and 20 solos. So, meh. 10.5 sacks. He only played 16 out of the 17 games. 13 tackle for losses and no forced fumbles, which is not what you want out of a D tackle. But the sacks was good though.
Sacks pretty good for D tackle, yeah.
And my number 7, I have Christian Wilkins. So
That's a bit high though, isn't it?
no, it's not. Because listen,
Okay.
he had,
So what's the information you had that on?
he only had 9 sacks. He had less than Chris Jones. He had 65 total tackles. 38 of them were solos. So his tackles ratio was a little higher.
Okay, that's why then. Okay.
He had 1 forced fumble and he had 10 tackles for loss. But it may have been a little different, but he also had 1 forced fumble and Jones didn't. You also gotta keep that in mind.
Yeah, it's very interesting how that all works. My number 7 has to go to Nick Bosa.
You what?
Ooh, interesting spot to put him there.
I can already hear the 49ers fans raging online.
Yeah, and care to explain?
Yes, I can explain. Thing is, I was shocked to see this. I thought he had way more than this. He only had 10.5 sacks, which is the same as Chris Jones. He had 16 tackles for loss, and he had 2 forced fumbles, which those are good, but I was like, that's it? I thought someone like him would have been up there with, a guy like TJ Watt second the quarterback, or Myles Garrett, or...
Yeah, that's fair.
My other guys. I'm just kind of shocked that he was that bad, technically. So I had to have him lower. But he is still a great player, don't get me wrong. My number 6 is Justin Madubuike from Baltimore.
Ooh, okay.
Now, for him, he was a pretty good upgrade in my opinion, because this is the first guy who finally hit more than 13 sacks on my list. Because that's what he started with. He had 13 sacks, he had 12 tackles for a loss, and he had 2 forced fumbles. So the only thing that Nick Bosa didn't have, he had that Madubuike didn't, was the tackles for a loss. We had 4 more. But Madubuike had 2.5 more sacks than Nick Bosa did. So I think he was more of a threat.
My number 6?
Yes.
Montez Sweat at number 6 from Chicago Bears.
He is good.
Because he had 12.5 sacks.
Yeah.
Chris Jones had my first multi. But this is 2 sacks more than Chris Jones. I'm trying to think what else he had. He played 6 years in the league. I'm saying something right.
Yeah, sounds right.
The only thing is, the reason why he's not higher, he only had 25 tackles and 17 solos. He didn't have much.
Many of the solo tackles.
But I should have placed him higher, though, because he only played 9 games.
Wait, what? I have it as he said played 17. Are you sure?
Stop it.
No, but
Get some help.
If he only played 9 games, then oh my goodness, he did good.
Well, I should have placed him higher, but this is where I have him at number 6. Number 5, I have Bosa. I have Nick Bosa at 5. From the 49ers, obviously, you went over pretty much all his stats. Nick Bosa, 16 tackle for losses and 2 fumbles.
Yep.
Forced fumbles, anyway. He's only played for 5 years in the league.
I know.
That's crazy.
It is crazy, though.
53 tackles total, 34 solos. He's played all 17 games.
Okay, so at least the tackles for his solo tackles are pretty good. Though.
Yeah, that's why I have him a little higher. But you could argue Montez Sweat could be higher too.
Yeah, my number 5 is Montez Sweat.
So we swapped.
Yeah,
pretty much.
So with Montez Sweat, he had 12.5 sacks. 14 tackles for loss and 3 forced fumbles. What's really confusing to me is when you said he only played 9 games, because I was looking into it and he played all whole season. So I'm like, I don't understand.
I was kind of confused. I'm like, I don't know sure if he played 9 games or 17. I don't know which.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the fact that he probably did 17 and go with the information I have because that makes more sense. Because if he did only play 9 games and had those stats.
He could have been higher.
He could have broken a record by if he did all the games. So there's that. Number 4 for me goes to Aiden Hutchinson from the Detroit Lions. So here's the thing: when you look at some of his stats, they're like mid. He had 1 less sack than Montez Sweat with 11.5. He had a same tackle for loss ratio with Montez Sweat as well. And he also had the same amount of forced fumbles. So you would think, wouldn't that mean Montez is best? What's better? Not exactly. Here's something that Aiden Hutchinson had that Montez Sweat didn't. He's the only guy on my list who had an interception on his thing last year.
Really? A D lineman
having an interception.
Ooh.
So that's the only thing that I was like, okay, that breaks it for me. That interception, because that's huge. For a defensive lineman to do that, it's really difficult and rare. So if he was able to get it, I had to include it.
He probably had to tip it to himself to get it.
Yeah, he also had 7 pass deflections, which was the most I saw too.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it was a little extra information for him, just because I was like, I wanted to explain it better and say why. But
because I also have him at number 4 as well.
Aiden Hutchinson.
I had Hutchinson
look at
at 4.
That. That's awesome.
So 14 tackles for loss, 3 forced fumbles. It's only his second year in the league.
Really?
Yeah, it's only his second year in the league.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. 51 total tackles, 36 of them were solo. He played all 17 games. Well, not much to say about Hutchinson. He's really their line's best lineman.
Detroit's best guy, yeah. How are your number 3?
He only had 11.5 sacks, which you already went over that. Yeah. My number 3 is Myles Garrett. So, Cleveland's best pass rusher.
Yeah.
He's played for 7 years in the NFL. He has 14 sacks, 42 total tackles, 33 of them were solo, so that's not bad.
That's pretty good.
He played only 16 games, and he played 1 game, but here's the thing about Myles Garrett. He had 17 tackle for losses and 4 forced fumbles, the most by a D lineman. That's why he's kind of up here.
Well, technically not most by the defensive line, because somebody else.
You have others?
I have one more guy later. But my number 3 is also Myles Garrett. He had 14 sacks. 14 sacks. He had 17 tackles for loss, and he had 4 forced fumbles. Which right there is really good. But if you want to go by the tackles for loss ratio and who has the best one for defensive line in total between edge rushers and D tackles, it is my number 2 being Max Crosby of the Las Vegas Raiders. He had 14.5 sacks last year. He had 23 tackles for loss.
Oh my goodness!
He was tied number 1 with Danielle Hunter, linebacker Danielle Hunter, and he had 2 forced fumbles. That was his lower point, but those 23 tackles for loss was that won me over for number 2. How about you?
I have Trey Hendrickson at number 2.
Okay.
He's the Cincinnati's best pass rusher
By far.
And probably the most sacks for a D lineman, 17.5.
I think he was.
Here's the thing that's lower for me. He only had 43 total tackles, and 28 of them were solo. But he played all 17 games, though, too. Hendrickson had 3 forced fumbles and 16 tackles for loss.
That's good.
You also got to account for my number 1, which is your number 2, Max Crosby.
Okay. What do you got? What information do you got?
So Max Crosby, 14.5 sacks. He had 3 less than Hendrickson.
Yep.
He's only played 5 games in the league, which is crazy.
Wait, what? 5 seasons in the league?
5 seasons in the league.
Okay,
Yeah.
you said 5 games. I was like,
5 seasons.
don't scare me like that.
5 seasons in the league. He had 90 total tackles. 55 of them were solos.
That's it.
I was gonna get you on that one.
There you go.
All 17 games were played. Obviously, they said 23 tackle for losses and 2 forced fumbles. That's the total tackles kind of got me.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy crapos.
Yeah. And now my number 1 was his number 2, Trey Hendrickson of Cincinnati. The thing that won me over was the sack count. Like 17 and a half. That was 3 more than the second, which is Max Crosby. So it's like he just dominated at that position last year. He had 16 tackles for loss, 3 forced fumbles, and it was like he was a monster for the Bengals, and I know he's going to stay that way for next season. And you got to watch out for that player when you're playing the Bengals for sure.
No, but the D-line you got to watch out for is Las Vegas, because
that yeah,
with Max Crosby and
Wilkins
on
that same line. Oh yeah, that's
God. And I was supposed to get to that. Who has the best defensive line?
We can start with the AFC right now because there's a few in the AFC that we could easily go with.
Raiders being one of them.
Yeah, Raiders easily being one of them. We also have, I think, the Chiefs with Chris Jones and like some of their guys. That's a really good one. The Steelers could kind of get thrown in there now with Cameron Hayward, but
the Jets.
Oh yeah, the Jets with Quinnen Williams and like Hassan Reddick on the outside now.
Yeah, he's a linebacker though.
Is he?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, Myles Garrett with LaDainian Tomlinson.
The Browns.
For the Browns.
There's a lot of good pass rushers on the AFC side. Now,
and then Trey Hendrickson and DJ Reader.
Oh yeah, you got
for the Bengals.
That.
So my number 1 for I think the most biggest defensive
line.
The defensive line, best one in the league, has to go, at least in the AFC, has to go to the Raiders. It has to. Like Max Crosby and Wilkins.
I was just thinking the same.
Like 2 guys that are easily top 10 defensive linemen of all time on the same team. You have to include that.
I was thinking the same thing, dude. I was thinking also the Raiders D line.
Yeah.
Now, here's the interesting thing. What about NFC?
The NFC. So, because on the Bears, they had that Montez Sweat with somebody else. The Lions have Aiden Hutchinson, and I forget the other guy. Let's see here.
Dallas is
Nick Bosa and Javon Hargrave.
Yeah, Dallas can be argued too, but because Dallas has a decent line as well.
Decent line. They have DeMarcus Lawrence. Micah Parsons counts more as a linebacker. So,
but Philly can be argued too, but they're young. They're a young D-line.
Yeah, Eagles could be up there. I think I have to go with the San Francisco 49ers, though. Having Nick Bosa and Javon Hargrave on the same line.
That's always scary.
That's going to be extremely scary only for anybody in the NFC. Now, I think teams that can compete with them in the NFC when it comes down to that, we're definitely have to beat Detroit and the Chicago Bears, actually, when it comes down to D-line.
Because that's what I'm going with. I'm going with Detroit.
Going with Detroit?
I'm going with Detroit's
Aiden
D-line.
Hutchinson. All right.
That D-line's no joke either. You gotta keep that in mind.
They were. I think they had the top 5 rush defense last year.
Yes, that's why I said they're not a slouch.
But
there you go.
Yeah, you guys have it.
Anyways, if you like this video,
please hit that subscribe button and be ready for next week, as we are going to dive into linebackers.
I know where this is going. This could be a little bias here.
Oh yeah, a little bit of some biases. What? Sorry, what? Okay.
Anyways,
all right.
This is Luke,
and I'm Elijah, and we are the Eagles of Steel. Bye.